We all have the potential to apply the same strategies to achieve amazing things in our work and lives. Hi, I'm Rob Hartnett, and as your Chief Possibility Officer and host, I'm here to inspire you to become the star of your world as a person of possibility, through learning how people from all areas of life are thinking big and chasing down their dreams. We've got someone up in the warm and sunny areas of the Gold Coast, but he also happens to be an AFL legend. He's played for 3 Brisbane Lions, Carlton, Geelong. He is also now an entrepreneur. Welcome, Lachie Henderson.
Thank you for having me.
Mate, I'm very excited. Now, look, as a long-suffering Essendon supporter, Lachie, is there any chance we can get you to pull the boots on and end up at Windy Hill? Is there any chance?
You definitely don't want me to do that anymore. The last year of footy I played was up here, and I was 6 hamstrings. I think I played most of the year with a hamstring injury.
The way Essendon's going at the moment, I think we've got about 6 hamstrings and various. So we seem to lose 2 players a match in like the first quarter. So I don't know, Mo. I don't think that rules you out yet. I'm still hanging in there for this podcast, see if I can convince you to come down. Now, mate, great AFL career. One of the things that struck me through this career you've had, you would have worked with some great coaches, and I do a lot of work in leadership, as you know. What makes a great coach? Did you have any views on that?
Yeah, I had a lot of coaches. I actually enjoyed all my coaches. I had some from Leigh Matthews, one of the greats of all time, Mick Malthouse in there as well, and then I had Brett Ratton, youngish coach when I got there still, and then Scotty now, he's still going very well with Geelong and doing what he's done over the last 15 years, 14 years, I think.
It's incredible.
I think for me, the simplest way of putting it is the care factor, especially these days, has got to be high, but being blunt at the same time. So delivering a message as clear as day and being able to do it in a way that the person still feels cared for. I think that's the hardest thing to try and marry up together, because everyone takes criticism differently. Everyone wants to be spoken to differently, and understanding the individual, yes, that's part of it, but on a broader scale, being able to deliver what he needs to deliver or she needs to deliver, and deliver it in a way that person still feels cared for or spoken to in the way they need to is the hardest thing I think a coach has got to do, but one that's so important to keep the culture running strong.
Yeah, so really getting to know the person, but so when you have that message delivered, it's kind of like delivered with empathy, but it's also I need this to happen now, and so
I think the strong word you just used there was empathy. Just understanding that you're not always going to get it right, because you're not always going to know every person as well as what you might know. I felt like Scotty and I had a really good relationship.
Yeah.
And he knew me, and he might not know a first year or a second year as well. That's fair enough.
Yes.
But being able to do it with empathy, to go, okay, I'm about to deliver this message. What do I think they're going to take from this?
Yeah.
And if they get it wrong, following it up. Or if they've heard at all that they've got it wrong through the grapevine, because they're probably not going to know in the moment.
Right.
Following it up, because that shows the care factor.
Yeah.
You can't just expect other people to do it. Or I suppose you can in a way if you've got a really strong foundation of assistant coaches, if we're just talking about footy, around that can follow it up and make sure it's like, hey, no, hang on a second. You're looking at this from the wrong way, young fella.
Yeah.
This is what he actually meant. Does that make more sense? And being able to follow it up. So yeah, it's sort of a convoluted answer to say the care factor is a big one.
But I think the follow-up's really good, because the interpretation can be different, and the coaching it's ongoing, isn't it? It's not just one thing and it's an instruction. It's like, okay, this is the expectation. This is what we're looking to do. But if they're doing it, that's great. But if they didn't do it, it's that course correction. I think that's a really nice piece.
Exactly.
Now, you decided to hang up the boots in 2021. What was behind that?
In the end, it was a bit of went both ways. The footy club were happy to sort of push me on my way.
Yeah.
And I was happy to go. I remember the phone call. We left at the end of the season. It was a pretty bad end of the year in 2021, and we got flogged by Melbourne in that prelim. And I was pretty banged up at that point, my body, and even mentally I was pretty banged up. And I was thinking about it. I hadn't really come to a decision, and Mac called me, Andrew Mackey, and said, mate, we're not going to offer you a contract. I remember that 2 hours, there was about 2 or 3 hours, and I was shattered, for want of a better word. I was like, oh, it's over. And then after 3 hours, I asked myself the question. I said, well, what would I have said if he had said, here's your contract? And I would have said no. And I'm like, oh, Well, what am I worried about?
Yeah.
So it was a bit of a mutual thing. I was physically pretty banged up at that point, and mentally banged up too. I'd sort of had enough of it all, so I was happy to go on my merry way.
Tell me about that when you say you, I understand that physically, and I think that can probably be related to mentally as well. But when you say you're mentally banged up, what did you mean by that? Was that just so much intensity for so long, or what was the?
Yeah, there was that, and I'm a big overthinker. I was and am a big overthinker. More when I was a footy player. I did a podcast recently, and it was sort of like, what could you tell your 21-year-old self? And I said,
Yes,
easy. Don't worry about what anyone thinks of you.
yeah,
I wouldn't have listened to myself, but
that's very honest.
yeah, but that's probably the biggest thing that I look at, and I think over the long period of time, I would just create these scenarios in my head of how much people were talking about me or thinking about me or things like that. And I think that was a big part of it as well for me. And it made footy at times really unenjoyable for myself. And ones that I would hope that anyone listening, there's a lot of people out here saying the same thing as me. There's a lot of people that
Mm.
worry about it still to this day. There's players there that worry so much, and it's a very hard thing not to do. But yeah, I think once you get a bit older and you finish and you leave the game, you realise no one cares about you really.
Absolutely right. I mean, I was talking to a group the other day about this, and even a younger group, and I was just saying, no, if you get to a certain my age, you realise that they're only thinking about themselves anyway. They're actually not thinking about you. And, and so you can overthink it, as you said, but also it's really tough. I mean, you're massively in the media spotlight. There's, and this is, it's the biggest game in this country, I think. And so there is so much more, but also I think the younger ones coming through have then the social media stuff, which is massive probably from when you started, wouldn't have been there, or its infancy, but now it's so much bigger. And of course, there's post careers and all this kind of stuff as well, but so much pressure on those players and the appearances of who they're with, and there's people snapping all the time. I mean, basically, everyone's a producer. Everyone's a producer of content now, as opposed to a consumer. We're producing more than we're consuming in many ways. So yeah, I think it's a really interesting point. And banged up physically, what was the main? Did you have recurring injuries? You talked about hamstrings before, but is there anything else that was going wrong?
Yeah, well, I had a few in that game, and a bit going on, which is normal,
Yeah.
relatively normal, a bit more than on that day. But that whole, I've had 15 surgeries. I think I'd had 13 up to that point. So I think the body was just sort of starting to tell me, you're hanging on. Maybe you could go another year, depending on what happens,
Yeah.
if you really wanted to. And then it's sort of Geelong said no, so I wasn't really that interested in anywhere else at that point. So
Right.
yeah, a lot of surgeries, a lot of banged up, a lot of 14 years doing it is a long time. There's players that have done it
Yes.
for longer, but 14 years of doing it with a banged up body was enough.
Yeah, yeah, and with 200 plus games, mate, you've got to be really proud of that. And I think your career, and you've got to be proud of that. It's a fantastic to do 200 games at the level you did. I mean, you played grand final, you played lots of finals. I mean, it is something I think that so many people aspire to, and you've done it. I think it's a huge part that will go forward, with your life. And I think even more so as you get into your business side, which you're now transitioning into. I have a question for you though, because I've worked with a number of athletes in football, and some of them try to go into corporate careers, and not many last. And I have my view on that. But you any views why that sometimes they go into this corporate life, but they don't seem to last, but they seem to go better as entrepreneurs?
I think a lot of it, because if you've been in a professional sport for a long time, yes, so much of it is set up for you, scheduled for you. So that's one of the hard things coming out.
Yeah,
But in a way, you're always in control of what you're doing in terms of your own self. You have a good, strong understanding of yourself because you know exactly what to do and when to do it. So when you
yeah,
go straight into the corporate world, it's like, oh, well, if I didn't know something, someone will just help me. But I
yeah.
think when you're in the corporate world, and I haven't fully been in the corporate world,
Mm,
I'm sort of more the entrepreneur side of
yes,
things.
yeah,
My guess would be when you go into it, you look at it and you're just supposed to fend for yourself. And a lot of the professional athletes, especially footballers, there's so much that we get done for ourselves. Like
right,
everything just gets done.
yes,
And so that would be probably one of my main reasons. And where if you go to entrepreneur, you're in control. You would most likely pick something that you understand, or you've got a vast understanding, far enough down the track on understanding to be able to jump in and go, okay, I can get through the first part of this by learning a few things. I can teach myself what I don't already know, and I can use other people in that space, because you're usually going to pick someone that you might partner with, someone that has already done it before.
Yeah.
Something like that. So I think that's where the entrepreneurial spirit probably comes from. And the easy thing is they've probably come out with a bit of money that they can just pump straight into a startup.
Yeah, no, and I think the entrepreneurial side of things, and having the money to be able to do that, I think is also a good part. I've also noticed that in my life in corporate, that in a lot of corporations, dare I say it, there is a pursuit of mediocrity, and I think that grates on professional sports people who are elite, who have always been 15 years or so of like, I'm pushing the envelope, whether they're Olympians or AFL players, and they're always expected to be at high performance level, and they come into a corporate where it's like, yeah, it's interesting, but we just kind of need to do this. As a friend of mine who's a speaker, she said to me, I was running this training course, and one of the team came up to her and said, hey, look, it's going really well, but just realise that we've only just got to tick the boxes. We know you're the gold standard, but frankly, we can just kind of end it a bit early. We just need to tick the boxes. And she was just horrified, because it's just not the way she operates. It's just going, are you kidding? I'm here, like, you're paying me, I'm giving you the best I can do. The person said, yeah, I know that, but don't try too hard. It's probably not worth it. It's like, and yet to a professional athlete is like, I'm sorry, that's a values challenge, right? And I think when you start to challenge people's ethics and values, when you're at the high performance level and you realize that people just are not interested in doing that as much, that's why I've seen them go, I'm going to run my own business, or do a startup, or grab some of my cash and run in. I did have another one that was interesting, was working with a couple of rugby. One was a rugby union player, and one was a rugby league. I'll keep their names out of it. But what they said was fascinating. And they went in working corporate in business development. And they were getting lots of meetings, but not getting much traction in terms of getting deals done. And I had one of them at a workshop, and he puts his hand up and he says to me, hey, I reckon people are taking meetings with me just to meet me. Would you reckon that's been the case? I reckon that's a pretty strong chance. Like, you're kind of a household name. So I reckon you'd get a first meeting. You're having trouble on the second one. He goes, yeah, I'm having trouble getting back in, and I'm having trouble closing deals. But I seem to sign a lot of autographs. I'm going, yeah, I think that is. And it was actually an epiphany moment for him. And he went, you know what, I'm going to have to get a little more serious who I'm taking meetings with. And I said, yeah, for sure, because you got to realize you have this brand. And he just never kind of worked out that he was still had a high personal brand as a player, but they weren't meeting him at where he wanted his career to go. They were meeting him from his past.
Yeah.
And that was that. And that's a hard thing, and he wanted to balance both of those out. And we had a great discussion and some strategies around it. And I know he's been successful now in his business career. So it's got there. Have you ever come across that, though, to date?
I think maybe early on, first coming out, I reckon if you're a bit higher profile, definitely that would happen a lot. I could think of a few names straight off the top of my head that would happen to. I'm lesser of a profile, so maybe not. Maybe at the start, definitely. I find that's an interesting thing to think about, though, because it would definitely happen. 100%. If you see the names coming out like a Chris Judd or someone like that, you just take the meeting straight away. I'll just go and see what happens.
Yeah,
because they probably just want to be friends with him.
Yeah.
It would be, and creating strategies around it would be a huge part for someone to do it. So, a couple of questions early on just to see if it was worth being there or not, worth the time, because you don't want to waste the time.
No.
But that mediocrity piece you just touched on before is an interesting one as well, because there would be so much in corporate, you're right, that is mediocre, and that's okay if they just want to come in and tick the boxes.
Yeah.
That's fine if that's what they want to do, and it makes the company run straight and narrow and all good.
Yeah.
But for a professional athlete coming in, it would be interesting to watch them as a fly on the wall, to sort of see and go, oh, well, when I did this, I let the team down. Like, if I did mediocre, because that's a lot of where it would come from.
Absolutely.
And you wouldn't even know it was coming from that, because it'd be like, if I don't do this, I can lose us a game.
Yeah.
Whereas in a corporate world, it probably, a lot of the stuff that doesn't get done either gets done by somebody else that does all the work, or just gets swept under the carpet and doesn't really matter, because there's probably a lot out there that doesn't. So I haven't thought about that either, which would be very interesting for any professional athlete, whether it's team or not, to come into.
It's good. In fact, I really enjoy working with professional sports people who are doing successfully in a corporate world, because I just know what they need and what levels they're going to come to, and they they call a spade, especially if they've been coached well and had mentors and really gone to the elite level in whatever sport they choose. It doesn't matter. They all think the same, but I just get more stuff done and get more traction because they just, like coaching, they tell it how it is, and they've got great empathy with it, but this is what we need to do as a team. I find them quite, if they do can do it well, and it's a bit of adjustment for them too, to realise they've got to meet people where they're at, and most people aren't at their level, which is elite sports, otherwise they'd be elite sports people. If they do it, then they can be quite successful at doing it. Let's talk about, switch gears. You now sort of post football career. How did you go? Where are you transitioning? With your personal brand, which has been an AFL player now and for a few years now, you're now into as being an entrepreneur. And how have you transferred or built your personal brand up?
I'm doing it right now.
Yeah. Apart from this, What's been the switch though? Like what's been your strategy to work out your identity as it shifted?
It's taken a while actually. I found it a lot difficult. I thought I was ready to come out of footy, and I was good to go and all that sort of thing. And it's taken me a while to work it out and work out how to do it and what to do, and even how hard you've got to push, and things don't just come anymore. You've got to really go and work for them. And that's I sort of alluded to it before with the things I was saying about with the guys in the corporate world. You've got to go get it. Whereas when you're a footy player, yes, everything gets done for you. Yes, you've still got to work hard and got to commit and do all of those things, but a lot of things will just come too, because you have to turn up at training 3 times a week, 4 times a week to run around and kick the footy. So you're just going to get better at kicking the footy.
Yes.
For the simplest way. And I think what I've tried to do is surround myself with some really good people that I can bounce off. And then slowly over time, and it's probably taken me a bit longer than what I would have hoped, for sure, to get to the point where it's like, all right, you've got to do this, this, and this. You've got to get X, Y, and Z done to get it done. And you've got to follow up, and you've got to be those things, because it was so set for me for so long. And I think that's what where you get stuck is you talk about a schedule. Yeah. And a lot of transitioning out, athletes transitioning out, struggle with the schedule. The schedule isn't just get up, you got to train, get up, you got to feed the kids, get up, you got to take them to school. It's okay, what else do I need to do to actually get, for the best way of saying it, just get shit done. Yes. Just to get it done, to close that deal, to do that stuff. And that's something that's taking me a little bit of time to get my head around, that things won't just happen. I won't just get better, because it's not just going to be set for me every day, like it has been. And I think that's sort of delving a bit deeper into the schedule, or the having things set up for you, that a lot of athletes sort of look into a lot. So that's something I'm just constantly working at, and then just getting myself back out there again. I closed myself off to media for a long time, and just sort of, I like doing these. I had 2 podcasts myself, and I enjoy doing them. So I'm just going to start getting back out and talking to good people. And we chatted off air, and you've already got a connection for me. And that's one of the reasons I do it, just to create the connections. And if it sticks, we'll know it. If it doesn't, great. I've had a great chat and I've learned something. Yeah, so it's good. I think that's a good point. I mean, you made a couple of really good points there for people as well, because I have a lot of corporate people who listen to the podcast. And I love that one you just mentioned, where you talked about the fact that you go to train, you have to go to training like 3 or 4 times a week, so you're going to get better at whatever you're training at. I think that's a big part missing in a lot of people's lives. Is that, and I do a lot of work with salespeople, and I go, well, how often do you actually do a role play before you go and do the meeting with the customer? Oh, and they go, oh, and I wouldn't do that, because, I want to be at one with the customer. I call them like Zen salespeople, I'm like, no, it's like, what if you stuff it up? It's a problem, right? You don't get a second chance to make a first impression. Yeah. Like, how often are you practicing this? How often are you getting coached? How often is people say, oh, I don't get time to coach my team. I'm like, well, if you have to coach 3 times a week, you do it, right? Yeah. But you're not accountable for that. You're told you have to have your sales forecast in every week, so everyone does that, right? But no one's actually holding you and saying, how many times did you coach your sales team this week? Oh, I didn't get around to any of it. Like, you couldn't go to Scotty and go, sorry, mate, look, I'm okay for Saturday to play, but I just didn't have time this week to turn up. It's a non-negotiable, for God's sake, So I think that was really fascinating. And I think then I think the thing you came out about talking about with structure was now the intentionality. And I think if you've now got an intentionality to say,
well, I don't have that structure anymore. The structure is me. I've got to be intentional about, making these calls, making this happen, getting this job done, because that's how that progression means, doing the podcast, doing another one over here, getting media. And I think that's really interesting, having that structure around as a pro athlete. And then you come out of it going, okay, I haven't got that. It's got to come from somewhere. It's clearly stated.
And I don't know if this is too honest right now, but I like to think that I just try to say it how it is. But even this morning, I had a bit of stuff going on, and I nearly cancelled.
Yeah.
For no real reason, but just the fact that I was like, oh, can we just push it back a week?
Yeah.
And I was like, no, hang on a second. It goes to what we're talking about here, which is like, no. Set a time. I can do it. I can make it work.
Yeah.
And it should make it work. And it's a great thing to do. Whether it's a great chat that I'll have with someone that I'll learn something. I've already learned something, because some of the stuff I'm coming out of my mouth still is like, oh, you missed it the other day. You've got to do it now. So I find it interesting that even I'd like to listen to people now and go, okay, do you reckon they're actually doing that themselves? And I can nearly guarantee that most of the time they're not.
Yeah.
But what they try to do is say it out loud to then remember it, or then spark their brain to go, okay, yeah, I've got to do that myself. And I'm definitely one of them, because I've already got two things in my head right now, and I'm like, all right, I've got to remember to do that.
Let's get a couple more in there. Now you've got a business. We'll call it a business broking firm, but I know you're doing mergers and acquisitions. You're pulling people together, and we were talking off air and how much you love about being in the middle and negotiating, helping two parties come together. You get a lot of joy clearly from doing that. Where did that come from? Where did the sort of business advisory, if I can even call it that, around, I guess probably mergers and acquisitions, where did that come from for you?
Yeah, well, using a bit of the bigger words, my mentor advisor up here, who I've got up here, is a ripper for me, and I was going backwards and forwards with him for a while, the first sort of year out, and I was trying a few different things. We were sort of not really trying, we were sort of talking through, okay, well, what could happen, what could we do? And it sort of just fell into my lap, to be honest. He said, look, I think we can find you some businesses in the financial services. It's what he's in. He's in financial services world. I think we can sell them. I think you'd be good at it. You've got a strong network. If you don't have that network, you're lucky enough that you can find it. You can pretty much make a few calls and someone will help you somewhere. That's my lucky part of what I've done for 14 years. And he said, I think you'd be good at it. And I sort of just went and did it that way. I went down the track. I got hand delivered a couple of businesses at the start, worked my way through them, and I just enjoy that. I'm still learning. I've still got the guys around me that help me a lot do it. But as you said, I enjoy making it come together. The actual settlement is the great end of the road, but I enjoy okay, you're still interested. Here's the seller. You're still interested, but you're not really understanding. Okay, how do we make it work? How do we make it understand? And that's the bit I do enjoy the most.
And given your experience in that so far, what makes a good sale-ready business? Have you got any thoughts around that? What makes a business really ready for sale?
Yeah, well, I've stuck very niche into the financial planning at the moment, so I haven't done a lot outside of that.
But in financial planning, for example.
Yeah, so if it's in financial planning, but what I'm about to say will go to everything, but they'll just use that as an example. But it's so much about data with financial planning, and everyone wants it a certain way, but a little bit of a different way every time that I found. So the one thing is just being prepared. And I know one of your follow-up questions will be, how long? And I think it doesn't, the time frame doesn't necessarily matter with how long preparing, but just think about it by what you would want to see as a seller if you were buying.
Right.
That's where I think it's the simplest question, but that's what I think a lot of people don't think about going into a sale. It's like, okay, what would I ask? What are the questions that I would ask for? Because then even one of the classic things that you say is, why are they asking for that? I'll get asked. And I'm like, well, this is why. And they're like, oh, they don't need that. I'm like, well, would you ask for it? And they're like, oh, yeah. But. I'm like, no. Would you ask for it or something very similar to it? And the answer is nearly always yes. And I think you just get caught up. And I think that's where these guys that are doing the mergers and acquisition, the broking of businesses are so important, because a lot of people don't want to pay the middleman. Like, you pay a real estate agent, everyone's happy to do that because they can see the value in it, because they can go find and do all the work. A broker, a M&A guy, are exactly the same. But the big part is we try to keep their emotion out of it, because if you're talking between the two, one thing gets said the wrong way, something gets taken the wrong way, and it blows up just like that when it probably shouldn't have.
Yes.
And in my short career, I've already seen it,
Yes. Yeah.
which has been very interesting for me. And when it happened, I actually got emotional about it as well and had to rein myself in to go, just leave it. Don't write any emails. Don't do anything. Just sit on it for 24 hours. Best thing I ever did.
Yeah, great advice, actually, by the way, for a lot of
Yeah,
things.
for a
Ladies and
lot of things,
gentlemen,
yeah.
sit on it for 24 hours. I like that.
Yeah, I just sleep on it. Someone gave me that advice a long time ago, which is just sleep. I think it might have been a psychologist of mine. Just sleep on it. Always just sleep on it. No matter what it is, just sleep on it and see what happens. I said it 3 times now. That's how important it is, I think.
Yes. Yeah, it's so important. I think that's really also it's the empathy, isn't it? Empathy is saying, okay, well, if you're selling it, if you were going to buy this business, where are the holes in it, and what questions would you ask? But I like the one about data. There's a great quote by a US venture capitalist, and he said, if we've got data, let's look at data. If we don't, and we're only going with opinions, let's go with mine. Right, so that was and he may have invested in Silicon Valley startups, but his view was, we've got data, man, let's look at the data, let's deep dive in the data, but if all we're talking about is opinions here, let's go with mine, because I own more and I got more at stake. And it's a really good, it's sort of got a bit of a urban myth around it now, but it's a guy called Jim Barksdale is his name. He's an ex-IBM venture capital guy, and it's a great point, because when you get back to data to me just takes away the emotion. Not everyone, it's impossible, we're humans, but it takes away a lot of the emotion. You go, well, this is the data, this is how many members we've got, or this is how many clients we've got, this is the amount of wealth we're looking after, these are the funds we manage, it's been growing X from this postcode, that kind of stuff, where you go, that's what it is, like it is what it is, and we've got a bit on top. And but people, when they see that, then it takes away a lot of those questions. And I think it's a good way to set people up, is to think about, if you were buying this, why wouldn't you buy this? Which is, in my experience, it's been a little bit around the ownership's quite complicated, or we haven't quite, we've got a legal, I remember one going down the track, it was actually a global deal, and it was looking really good. Both parties were actually quite excited. And then we found out that they had a legal suit, legal challenge in the US. It was still, and someone tracked it down and said, hang on, what about this? And they went, oh, yeah, it should be right. It should be right. And of course the buyer's gone, well, how about we wait till we see if it is right? And you can't blame the seller's like, oh no, what's going on? We were going so well. It's just got this little thing to the side. And for them, it was like little thing to the side. To the buyer, you and I, they got a legal, hang on a second, instead around IP, that's kind of a big deal, right? Or it could be.
Yeah.
It took me a while to sort of convince the seller to go, no, if you're in their shoes, this is probably a bit, this is a red flag. Like, you need to sort this out, or bring it forward, or get it to a resolution. But they're like, oh yeah, you can. You're probably from their point of view.
Yeah, and that's a big one, definitely. Like, I'm not saying it's not a big one, but
right.
The way I like to look at it and go, okay, big red flag, and this is probably a bad example for what I'm going to try to say now, but it's still an example that we'll use because it's in our face.
Yes.
There would still be a way to do that deal.
Yeah.
There's always a way. That's my only point here, and it's just whether one party has got to take a bit more of a leap than the other. And if you find that person, you'll still get the deal done. That's what I enjoy. Okay, red flag.
Yeah.
Shit. Don't know if I'm allowed to swear on this, but shit, red flag. But are you still interested if that red flag wasn't there? Yes. Okay. What about if we can limit the liability or the damages or whatever in some way? Okay, let's look at that.
Yeah.
Now, some people don't want to do that because they don't want to waste their time. Completely fine. But my point is that you can always find, no matter how long it takes, you'll find someone that will be able to do that deal.
Yeah.
Somewhere down the track. And again, I say, even in my short career, I've already seen it.
Yes.
It's been super interesting to see, because you get told no. It only takes one.
That's right. You only need one buyer, right?
You only need one.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And I like to, and I'm learning my lessons, but I like to work with one or two. I don't like to go to the broad market too much. I don't believe in it that way. And I'm honest with that with my clients. I'm very honest. I don't try to sugarcoat it for them. But I find those things interesting, because right away I see not opportunity, but I say, all right, let's see what we can do here.
Yeah. And I think so. And I love that, because if you've got the that optimistic view as well. And I think it's a view of saying, hey, we know what I mean by it's not blind optimism. It's like okay, we understand the current situation, but we're also optimistic about a deal can still be done.
Yeah,
I think that's actually the value you bring in that middle part. That kind of middle. That's what the middle person can bring. I think that's where you're absolutely worth your money, because you can have that. You're not really connected on either side. You can have that kind of impartial view and look at it and say and advise both parties.
And for the most part, I would have liked to know, if you're using that example again, is if that would have come out in the first or second conversation. Hey, because it might be a small legal dispute, like it might not be as well, but hey, we've got a small legal dispute. This is what it is. What else do you want to know about it?
Yeah.
Because most of the time, and it's easy to say after the fact, but most of the time a buyer will say, oh, you should have just been honest. And then it would have been okay. Or then we would have been able to at least progress it that way. And that's the other thing. It's like, it's really trying to get that. And a lot of people want to hide. Fair enough too. Like I see both sides of it.
Yeah.
Want to hide it, but just be honest from the start, because it's better, because it wastes everyone's time. If you're not.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think so. Being honest, being open about it. I think that's really interesting. Have you there was a thing I've seen recently. We have people buying businesses and the like, but there's this group called EBAs, so entrepreneurs by acquisition. So these are ones who don't want to do a startup. They may be in a corporate, or they maybe come out of a sporting career, and they just go, you know what, I want to buy a business and get straight into it. Have you seen a bit of that happening?
I haven't seen it personally in terms of having my hand in it or seen it close around me, but I think a lot of that is stemming from social media. And I think it's great. I'm not being negative towards it. I'm very negative social media with other reasons, but for this one, not so much. I think it's great. I think there's so many out there now, and Cody Sanchez is one of them. She's from America. There's a lot of them out there just showing people what you can do. Like, a lot of people wouldn't even know what vendor finance is.
Yes.
And I didn't until a few years ago either. So I'm not claiming to be better than everyone else.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't even know what that is. They wouldn't even know that they actually really don't need cash to get in.
Yeah.
They just have to find the right person to structure a deal the right way.
Yeah.
And that's where all these guys talk about the negotiation is the most important thing, because it is.
Yes.
Negotiation, understanding what does that person actually want, because you can find an old woman or an old guy that's running a business and say to them, hey, I'll take it over for you. I'll take it over 2 years. You can slowly go out. Let's create our relationship over the next 3 months. Let's see how we fit together. We won't sign anything yet, or we might sign something that's just sort of gets us where I don't waste my time and don't get cash out of it, but you don't either. And then let's 3 months down the track. Look, there's just so many different ways of doing it. And I think social media helps that a lot now in the world we live in, because you can connect with anyone and everyone's willing to just give you alluded to it before, just content, just creating content. There's so much of it out there that you can find a way, and something will stick with that person or a person when they see it. And I like watching Cody Sanchez is a good one to use. Like, I think she's really interesting because she simplifies it. And it's not always that simple to go do it, but she simplifies it when she explains it to you.
I think that's so true too, because when you think about that space, and a lot of people I know in corporate world and also from looking at post career from sport, they don't know what's out there, and it's so much as possible. It's kind of why we call this podcast "It's All Possible," because there are so many ways of slicing and dicing and cutting it. If you really want to go do it, it doesn't mean you have to go to the bank to get finance. It doesn't mean you have to kind of borrow from parents and the like, or raise your super. There's actually many ways to be able to kind of make these acquisitions, these businesses. And I think you and I were talking off air beforehand. What we're seeing now is this. I think over the next 5 years is going to be this massive exodus of baby boomers, essentially, who are just aging out of businesses. Nothing sinister about it. It's just how it is with demographics. So there's going to be this massive opportunity to go in and talk about taking over a business or acquiring a business in many different forms. And I think the saddest form I see is when I see a business that's been going 30 years, just closes the doors, and then I go, man, where'd the goodwill go? Like, you're kidding me? Like, there's something still there. Like, it's not like they're making stagecoaches. Like, some of these businesses are actually still quite viable. And they just close up because sometimes the seller doesn't know how to approach it either. They think that if no one still walks up to me or I put it on a business broking site or something, that's a fault. Sometimes the buyers don't really know how to do it, but sometimes also I find the sellers are a bit naive in terms of what they can do. Have you come across that at all in your short career in this area?
I think one thing that gets me, I think, in this day and age is there wouldn't be a lot of trust either. If you've got a
Right.
young 20-something-year-old roll up to a older person trying to transition, a boomer trying to transition out, I'm just not sure they trust with the
Yes.
with the world we live in. And again, fair enough. So I think finding a way to do it, and there'll be people out there. I'm sure there is. I'm sure
Mm.
maybe one person will be listening to this podcast will say, "Oh yeah, I do this well." I think finding a way to build that trust is the big one, and say, "Hey, I'm not here to screw you over to take what you've got." Like trying to, that's you're not going to just be able to say that, obviously,
Yeah.
but trying to show them, hey, this is what it is. I'll get a lawyer in. You can pick the lawyer, like whatever it is to get them to say, hey, this is what it is. So yeah, I think it goes both ways, but I think the trust factor, especially if that's the way you're going to do it, going to buy an old
Mm.
fish and chip shop, I don't
Yeah.
know, something like that. I think it'd be difficult because I think the trust factor at the start would have to be huge. Or else you just have to roll in there with a briefcase of cash and say, there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they actually see the tangible stuff because he'd be selling. If you're going to do it on vendor finance, nothing gets seen.
Yeah.
It just happens through some sweat equity. So yeah, yes and no. I think trust factor is a huge part of it, and trying to grow that trust factor is huge.
Yeah, I think that the other industry I've seen did a bit of work this year with in the professional hair salon businesses, and one of the big trends there is definitely it's well cemented in the US is less about a salon owner having 5 or 6 stylists working for them, but actually having rent a chair.
Yeah,
Right, the whole rent a chair thing has become it's default in the US, but now we're starting to see it come into Australia. It's people wanting a bit of autonomy, but also don't really want to work out of their home. So it's really interesting. And what's actually adapted to that is some of the accounting systems and the finance systems, like a CRM system and the whole accounting systems are now being built so you can actually have people have their own silo rent-a-chair accounts all within the umbrella area. So the systems and technology has adapted to these new models. And that makes it really easy. So when that owner of the brand, for example, the overall brand goes to sell, they can actually go, hey, I've got 8 rented chairs here. This is who makes more money than the other. And we can actually do all their pricing. And that you couldn't have done that 5 years ago. So when you're on the data side, you go for the data wouldn't have shown you much. But these days, the data is really clean, very transparent. And I think that also builds trust. When someone can go, give us a look at your data, the data's the data. And I think that can build trust as well as because we're all cynical now.
yeah.
And I think everyone's cynical. No
Absolutely.
one trusts anyone, right? So I think that's the key thing. If we don't trust anyone, how can we build trust fast? Well, data helps build trust fast. And you check with 2 or 3 people. You could pick the lawyer. I love that. That's a great tip as well. Because you want to build that fast and go, is there something we can do together here? Because the other thing is people are struggling for staff. And so that's what I'm saying to people now is when you hire your next hire, are you thinking about them as just who I can get in at the lowest possible cost, or could this person buy the business from me? And you say to business owners, and they go, "Oh, shit, never thought of it that way." You go, "Well, you just got to start thinking that way, because because there's 2 different hires. You've got 2 different sets when you go do it." Yeah, mate, fantastic. Hey, how did you come up with the name of the business? So is it Connect? Did I get that right?
Yeah, that's how I came up with it. I don't even know. I was trying to get something. This is a tough question for me. It shouldn't be. I was trying to get something that I think brings people together,
Right.
but then quick and clean.
Yeah.
And then I just came up with KNCT, I think, and Connect. So, and then the website is LKNCT, which you could say is Lachie, but it's not. It wasn't meant to be. It was Let's Connect.
Okay, got it.
But it's just KNCT. I haven't used it that much. I haven't pushed it from that way. I've sort of been just using me as an individual to say, like, I'm not saying I'm KNCT, come and work with me. I use myself as an individual, but I had to have something there to back myself. And so that's where it came from. It wasn't anything more than that. I might have to refine that answer a little bit better than what it is.
That's a good one though. I thought it was Connect. I was looking at it and I was trying to work your initials into it, and I was going, no, maybe that's a holding company. Hasn't worked this out.
I've done my job then. I've done my job.
It got me talking, right? It's become a subject matter, and I thought maybe it's just taken off the registration plates of his car and put that on there. So you should brand it that way. That's really cool. Hey, Lachie, been fantastic to chat. So we just talked about that connection there. How can people find out more about what you're doing and what do you say? What's the website? Give us the website.
It's www.lknct.com.
.com and social media. What are you on Instagram?
Good question. I'm not a big social media man. It is KNCT Business.
KNCT, probably something like .biz or something like that. I think
but
I know I found it. So.
Oh, you did find it. Oh, I'll be the first to say there's not much going on there at the moment. I'll keep it thin. But then I'm Lachie Henderson 25 as well. But social media for me, LinkedIn is the one I'm trying to do a bit more on.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
LinkedIn, so just find myself at Lachie Henderson. So that's where I've tried to post a few more things. You're not going to find me much doing it, I don't think, on the social media platforms. Maybe here and there, but LinkedIn, find me on LinkedIn is the most important, I think, because that's where I'm trying to do a bit more.
Yeah.
Sort of posting things and
you're based on the Gold Coast, but you work
East Coast.
East Coast. Yeah, work East Coast.
East Coast mainly.
No one wants to go to Perth. No, of course they do. We love Perth. What we're saying, we've got people young global. We love Perth. Like you love playing in Perth. Love
no comment. I did actually. Something always happened to me when I played in Perth. I got knocked out twice. Bad things.
Bad
things. I broke my eye socket. I got titanium mesh all through my.
Oh my God! Really?
Eye socket had a really bad concussion too, as well. So those two things. I had a couple of they were bad.
So everybody, East Coast. Really happy to go East Coast. We'll fly up and down the East Coast, but nothing further west than Adelaide are we going. So that's it.
Exactly.
Lachie, fantastic. It was been great to chat, mate. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
No worries. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the It's All Possible podcast. You can contact me at rob@robhartnett.com or my website, robhartnett.com, or on LinkedIn. Remember to check out the previous seasons and episodes of the podcast and the show notes for more details on this episode's guest. For more inspiration, remember to check out the It's All Possibility playlist on Spotify, which contains a collection of upbeat, positive music I use for inspiration in my live performances. Until next time, live with passion and a perspective of possibility.